Welcome to the proposed 2025 hunting season presentation for Northeast Wyoming, presented by Matt Heisinga, Sundance wildlife biologist. I'll give a brief rundown of our season setting process for those that aren't familiar. Throughout the year, we're analyzing data through hunter surveys, wildlife population surveys, hunter field checks, looking at harvest data. All that gets put together to create these season proposals. Once they're put together, that goes to the region for review and then up through the department for further review. Once we have our proposals put in place, it goes out to the public on these presentations and our draft regulations. We hold public meetings up in this area. We'll have one in Newcastle on March 27th at 4 p.m. at the Pinnacle Bank Conference Room. Then we also have one in Sundance later that evening at 7 p.m. at the Crook County Courthouse. So the public comment period runs through 5 p.m. April 2nd. In order for comments to be looked at by us and our commission, they have to be received by that time. We'll then look at all of our comments, go through and analyze any kind of changes that we need to make based off of our public comment, and put together our final season proposals that'll go to our commission. Once we have that all together, our commission meeting April 22nd and 23rd in Casper is where those will be approved. These are the hunt areas we'll be covering in this presentation. For pronghorn, we'll cover areas 2 and 3, 4 through 8, and hunt area 27. Deer will cover areas 2 through 6 and 7 through 12, and also the region A and B quotas. Elk will cover areas 1, 113, 116, 117, 123, and 126, and then the region E quota. And then we'll also cover bighorn sheep, hunt area 20, and also wild turkeys at the end. We'll start off with the North Black Hills pronghorn herd. For more detailed info on this herd, you can also look at the Gillette presentation. So North Black Hills, for this area, we pretty much cover areas 2 and 3. No changes to hunting seasons or quotas this year. We've had somewhat low hunter success every year, but days to harvest were lower than average. The herd overall population is increasing. We'd like to see it keep increasing, so we've kept licenses the same. There will be an increase in hunt area 1, however, of 100 licenses. Looking a little bit at numbers for hunt areas 2 and 3, our fawn ratio in hunt area 2 looked really good this year. We should see some increases coming in that area. Not quite as good in hunt area 3. Our production is a little lower. We also see about the same thing in bucks. Our buck ratio is good in hunt area 2, but a little low in hunt area 3. So our harvest is a little bit lower than the previous 5-year average. Some of that is the reduction in licenses over the last few years. But we are starting to see a little bit of a rebound, and we'd like to keep that. So we're keeping license numbers the same to try to see some growth in numbers in those areas. Moving on to Black Thunder pronghorn, this includes hunt areas 4 through 9, 24, 27, and 29. Looking at numbers, you'll kind of see a pattern throughout this presentation. We've seen a bit of decrease in numbers with pronghorn in the last 5-6 years. We're starting to see a little bit of a rebound of that population. The fawn production this year definitely will help that out. Our population objective for the Black Thunder pronghorn herd unit is 49,000. We're currently estimating about 30,500. Looking at classifications, we're definitely seeing higher fawn ratios than we've seen in a number of years. So that should help with some growth in the herd. Our buck ratios have been pretty steady over the last 10 years. Our harvest chart pretty much parallels our population charts. As our population increases and decreases, our licenses go along with that. So we're right at the trough right now. We're seeing some of the lowest harvests that we've seen in this herd unit in a lot of years. Not a lot of changes in this herd unit this year. We are planning on increasing some licenses. In area 7, we'll see a small increase to give a little more opportunity. Our hunter success was fairly good in that area. Area 9, We've been having some chronic damage issues later in the season after the seasons are closed, so we've added a few doe fawn licenses in November for that hunt area. And then hunt area 24, we're seeing some higher numbers in that area, so we're going to increase type 1 and type 2 licenses, 50 licenses each. That'll do it for pronghorn herds for this area. Then we'll move on to the Cheyenne River deer herd, covering hunt areas 7 through 14 and 21. As I mentioned with pronghorn, you'll kind of see a recurring theme here with population declines over the last number of years. Cheyenne River mule deer herds, no exception. We saw some EHD die off and lower numbers in 21 and 22. We also changed our modeling strategy in 2021, so some of these numbers do just coincide with a better model that we have now. So Cheyenne River mule deer, our population objective is 27,000 deer. Our current estimated population is 10,400. So we're fairly stable, maybe seeing a little bit of an increase again in that herd unit. Looking at classifications, our fawn ratios are starting to increase over the last few years and getting back up to where we should see some little bit of population growth in this herd. Our buck ratios have been a little depressed over the last number of years, but are starting to go on an upward trend. We're starting to see a few more bucks out there. Looking at harvest in Cheyenne River, we don't see the big swings in harvest with the population declines as we do with the pronghorn with the general hunt areas. We are seeing a little bit of a lower harvest just because we've reduced non-resident Region B licenses over the last several years. With a little bit of increase in population and stabilizing out, we've saw a little bit higher harvest this year. With the decreases in licenses in the previous years, we feel like we're at a pretty good spot now, so we're not proposing any season changes at all for Cheyenne River this year. Looking at hunt area 10, it's the one limited quota area in Region B. The quota there is going to stay the same at 75 type 1 licenses. Our fawn ratio fit right in with the rest of the herd unit at right about 67 fawns per 100 does, higher than it has been the last 5 years. Our buck ratio is showing 74 bucks per 100 does this year. That's likely a little higher than what's actually out there. We have a fairly small sample size for that one hunt area. The harvest this year was pretty low, so we definitely had some lower hunter success than we have in previous years. Just a quick look at the white-tailed deer hunt areas that overlap this area. Those seasons won't see any changes in season dates or quotas this year either. Moving north, we'll get into the Black Hills mule deer herd, which is hunt areas 1 through 6. This herd unit's seeing similar trends, higher numbers 8 to 10 years ago and declining for the last 7 or 8 years. We saw a big drop both with our different modeling strategy and also with EHD outbreak in 2021 and 22. Our population objective in this herd unit is 30,000 deer. We're about half of that at 13,100 is our current estimated population. Looking at classifications for Black Hills mule deer, that's looking really good on the fawn side. Our fawn ratio of 86 per 100 is higher than we've seen in the last 10 years and should show some pretty good growth in that herd this coming year. Our buck ratio has stayed pretty consistent. It's been on a slow downward trend over the last 10 years. As with other areas, our harvest has been on a downward trend with the population over the last 10 years. We did see a slight increase this year in harvest, which correlates with a stable to increasing population. As with Cheyenne River, with this population stabilizing and starting to grow back a little bit, we're leaving seasons as they were last year to continue that trend. We'll move over to whitetail in the Black Hills. This will cover the same hunt areas 1 through 6. Following along somewhat with mule deer, our Black Hills whitetail deer been in some pretty good declines over the last number of years. We saw a big decline in 2021 and 22 with the EHD die-off throughout the area. Our population objective is 55,000 deer. Our current estimated population is 37,400, so we are a bit below objective in this area. With personnel changes this fall, we didn't complete whitetail deer classifications before the season this year, so we're missing this year's data. Looking at fawn trends over the last 5 years, we were slowly declining. We probably saw an increase in fawns this year, along with the mule deer fawn ratios that we were seeing. Our buck ratio in this area has stayed pretty consistent, trending right about 30 bucks per 100. Here's where you'll see the biggest swing in harvest. We went from a high of over 7,000 deer in 2018 down to barely over 2,500 deer harvested in the Black Hills last year. A lot of that was a decrease in licenses issued with the EHD die-off in 2021, but we were seeing some decrease in harvest before that even. The 2024 harvest at 2,512 estimated was barely over half of the previous 5-year average harvest in this area. As with the other deer herd units we've covered, this area is starting to see some comeback and starting to see some growth. So we're leaving everything as is for this year. There will be no changes in season dates or quotas for the Black Hills whitetail deer. Finishing up with herd units, we'll cover our non-resident region deer quotas. For Region A, hunt areas 1 through 6, we're keeping it at 2,000 licenses. It'll be the same as last year. The Region B non-resident quota for hunt areas 7 through 9, 11 through 14, and hunt area 21 will be staying the same as well at 800 licenses issued this year. That covers it for our deer areas. We'll move on to Black Hills elk. Unlike deer and antelope, our elk did not see the declines in the last 10 years. We're seeing the opposite with elk. We're seeing increases in elk numbers all over northeast Wyoming. Hunt area 1, we've stayed pretty consistent with harvest being a limited quota area and consistent license issuance. We are starting to see a little bit of increased harvest in 116 in the last few years. 117 has been slowly increasing over the last 10. We're seeing almost double the harvest this last year that we did in 2015. We'll see some changes in Black Hills elk this year. We're currently reviewing the objective and population estimate and should have some more information on that coming out in the next few months. The big change for this area is we're changing the hunt area boundary. We'll be removing the portion of hunt area 117 south of Highway 16 from Newcastle to the South Dakota border. That portion will now be part of hunt area 126 and will be in the general area. That addressed the biggest change in this herd unit. We will see some season changes and license changes. The 116 Type 7 license is going to go away. We're replacing that with a Type 8 license, valid on private land with a little bit earlier season opener. All other 116 license and seasons will stay the same. The 117, the only change we'll have is we're removing that language, allowing that license to be valid south of Highway 16, which is no longer relevant, with that being moved to 126. Moving over to Rochelle Hills elk herd, that'll cover hunt areas 113 and 123. Hunt area 113, we'll see a few changes this year. We are bringing back the Type 1 license, valid from November 5th through the 30th, with 50 any elk licenses. The Type 3 license will stay in that we had last year. We are going to extend that closer to December 31st instead of November 30th. The big change in here is we are going to add a 113 Type 8 license, which is unlimited from August 15th to November 30th. That's valid on private land only. So that license is intended to address some damage issues with elk in that area. The 2024 harvest was pretty high success, which it normally is in that area. Hunt Area 123 is going to see some bigger changes this year than 113. We are going to have the Type 1 license available again in 123 season from October 1st through the 31st with 200 licenses available for any elk. The Type 2 license will be removed this year. We'll not have that. We're also removing the Type 6 license. The Type 4 licenses will stay in with an increase from 75 to 200 Type 4 licenses. The Type 8 license will still be available. The 123 general license for the Raven Creek drainage, that will be changing. There's a proposed boundary change which will move that Raven Creek drainage area from Hunt Area 123 and add that into the general Hunt Area 126. For more info on that change, look at the Gillette season presentation. Harvest in this area has been increasing. The 2024 harvest was 293 elk, which is well over 100 more elk than the previous 5-year average. So we're definitely seeing an increasing population in that area. We'll now move over and briefly cover Hunt Area 126. Looking at the non-herd unit Hunt Area 126, we'll see a few changes being proposed in that area. The biggest is some boundary changes. That area of 117 south of Highway 16 east of Newcastle will be removed from area 117 and added into 126. We're also looking at a change from a chunk of the Raven Creek drainage in Hunt Area 123 being moved over into Hunt Area 126 as well. The only season date change we'll see is the 126 Type 8 licenses will now open August 1st instead of August 15th. Otherwise, the language in the limitations part is just to address that portion of Area 117 that'll be now in the general area. Going along with 126, we'll look at the non-resident general elk Region E quotas. Region E covers multiple hunt areas in eastern Wyoming, covers hunt areas 1, 2, 3, 116, 126, and 129. That quota was put in place last year at 600. Looking at hunter success and the draw demand, we are looking to increase that quota from 600 to 1,000 licenses to better address that. Just a reminder, you can only hunt the general license areas in that region. Any of the gray shaded areas in there are limited quota and are off limits for that Region E license. So we had an estimated 76% hunter success in 2024, which is quite high for a general license. Finishing up with elk, we'll switch over to bighorn sheep. The Cuba Canyon bighorn sheep herd is co-managed with the state of South Dakota. That herd crosses back and forth pretty regular. It covers Hunt Area 20 in Wyoming. We have seen a bit of a die-off in that area. We're seeing less sheep than we did a few years ago. We're down to approximately 125 sheep estimated. This year we'll have one license available to a resident of Wyoming. Now we'll move over to wild turkey seasons. The 2025 fall season proposal for turkeys, we're making a few changes. We're increasing the Type 3 license quota as we've added a few counties to that Type 3 license. Crook, Hot Springs, and Weston counties were added, and those will be valid on private land only for those 3 counties. Another change we're looking at is evidence of sex must accompany the carcass, but it no longer needs to be attached to the bird. So looking at another possible change, the Type 3s end December 31st currently. Those could potentially run into the end of January if that change is made. Moving on to the 2026 spring turkey season proposal, the general licenses won't see any change this coming spring. The Type 3 licenses, however, will have a little bit of change. The Converse County licenses historically have opened later on April 20th. Those will also open April 1st, along with the rest of the counties that are valid in those type 3s. The May 31st closure will stay the same for all of the counties. We are adding another 100 licenses into those type 3 licenses available as well. There is going to be a survey coming for the turkey harvest survey addressing removing rifles from the spring season. Well, that wraps up my presentation on season proposals and changes for Northeast Wyoming. If you'd like to comment on any of these proposals, you must send your comment by 5 p.m. April 2nd to be looked at by our commission. You can send them standard mail to our Casper office, the address listed here. You can also get online with the web address listed and submit your comments online. And if you have any questions or would like to discuss any of these seasons or proposals further, you can contact Matt Heisengood, the Sundance wildlife biologist, at the number below.